agenda. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Okay, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. First, a couple of quick points of business that Laura actually suggested. She's been to some other committee meetings for her sustainable purchasing plan stakeholder engagement. And she said that at some of the other meetings, they start with stating who the chair is, who the alder is, and who the staffer is. And that sounds like it's helpful for the guests that may join. And so I thought that was a good idea. Um, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'm the chair. Excuse me, I'm the chair. I'm Christy. Kelly is the staffer, and Alder Schaefer is our alder, but he is not here. It doesn't look like he's here tonight. Um, and just, I'm not going to go into it, but just a reiteration of what I mentioned last time. Let's try to keep our comments, pretty succinct and short if we can, and just try to the goal is to open up room for some of the voices we don't hear as often, and to keep the meetings maybe a little bit shorter. So in that line, after moving on from there, I did submit a possible proposed amendment to the meeting or the minutes as submitted. So I don't know, I just emailed it about 30 minutes ago, so I don't know if you are able to pull those up, Kelly. Just
Yes.
wondered what people thought of those. If you liked the proposed amendments, it's really up to the committee.
Can I just ask,
Yep.
Christie, I mean, it's quite a bit of detail here, and I don't disagree with what you've said, but I'm just wondering what you felt you needed to do to
Yep.
add these much.
Yeah, good question. I figured, and I probably should have stated, there might be some lines we strike, or maybe we strike a good bit of it. What I'm really, the heart of it is, and we'll get to that in the next agenda item, or one of the next, is that I'm really disappointed in the lack of response from Veridian on the heat pumps. I feel it is extremely disrespectful and discourteous of them. They have ignored basically our request.
Mhm.
They ignored my emails, they ignored my phone call. And their response basically said they told us what we had already stated, which was, heat pumps are difficult in cold climates. And we had stated that we wanted the dual fuel. By the way, thanks to Kermit for pointing out that I spelled dual wrong. Thank you, Kermit. That was a big find. That's embarrassing that I spelled that wrong. But anyway, so my goal is I plan, and we'll get to this in the future agenda item, but I plan to speak to the council tomorrow night on asking council to request that they make dual fuel heat pumps or hybrid heat pumps the default option um, for the homes. And so this is documenting that we discussed this and they committed to getting back to us, and they really have ignored us on this point.
Well, can I just follow up my question then? Is
Please.
that is I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm just wondering if if this was really what we were trying to do last time, because we're an advisory committee. We're not the planning commission. We're not a
Yeah.
commission that has authority. We make recommendations.
Yep.
So I was certainly sensing that that was what our recommendation was, but to make something a default option means we're basically saying you need to do this. But if somebody says, well, I don't want to put in a heat pump, then they can come up with an alternative. Maybe it's subtle, and I'm certainly interested in hearing other people's thoughts on it, but it feels like a pretty strong statement that they need to do this. And I guess rather than, I was thinking what was originally written here was this was a recommendation that this would be something they would encourage. And we certainly moved that forward. I think the way the minutes were written we were encouraging, not just saying it was an option. We wanted them to promote it, but not say, I didn't know that we said they had to do this unless somebody opts out. So I think it's quite a subtle difference, and I'm glad to hear Herman's got his hand up.
Yeah, that's really helpful feedback, Dick. Thank you. Kermit.
Yeah, I'm thinking just to maintain clarity of order on the agenda. At this point, the question is approving the meeting
That's true.
minutes, and in particular, Christie has submitted an amendment. So the question at hand is that amendment an accurate reflection to be included and accepted into the minutes or not? And
Or do people
we
want
could,
to amend this? It really doesn't have to be just like this either, or you can take out all my comments.
well, right, exactly. I mean, so that's the focus of the discussion right now. And then the further points and concerns that I think Krista, you raised and that Dick raised would fall more accurately, I think, and appropriately under the third item on the agenda.
Yeah, that's a good point too, I
Yeah.
think. And
So
that's
we can just, I'd like to, just wrap up the minute because this is just changing the wording. And the question
yeah,
is,
yeah. Oh,
and if we could move to a motion and then have discussion and then vote and make whatever friendly amendments are needed in the
fair
light of
enough.
that.
Yeah, they're a little related, but fair point. Yeah, Deb.
If I remember last month's meeting, I think this just further talks about what we talked about. I mean,
Yep, yep.
it just gives you more information about how the conversation developed. So I don't see anything wrong with it.
So can I'll move that we approve the amendment as submitted by Christie. Or by the chair, if you prefer.
Either way, it's up to the committee. Okay, we have a second. Any other points of discussion? Is that how I say it, or any other?
Yeah.
Okay. 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 All in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, passed. Thank you.
And Christie, do you also ask, are there any nays or abstentions, just to get that on
should
the
I ask
record
that?
too?
Okay. I didn't see any, but are there
It looked like it was unanimous, but I just want.
That's a good question. Are there any nays or abstentions? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And Kelly will throw back up the agenda, but we'll move to public comments. Do we have public comments this evening? Rick.
Yep, so I'm Rick Etherson. Many of you know me. I'm an environmental engineer. I work at AECOM in Middleton. I've been serving on the watershed committee for the Friends of Pheasant Branch Committee, or Friends of Conservancy, for 7 years now, and been on the board for Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy the last 2 years. We've had a lot of interest in the Ziegler development, so that's agenda item number 3. Coming up now, Pheasants Crossing, and we've had members of both the Watershed Committee and the board have met up with Ziegler family members and gotten a tour of the watershed. Basically the property as it drains towards Pheasant Branch. It's been an area that several of our members have been concerned about for quite a while, and happy to see this starting to come through, hopefully for a positive development. We've seen a number of concerns with big rainfalls this last year, with quite a lot of sediment loading that's been coming from Red Tail Ridge and farther upstream, and I'm certainly concerned about this area. I think there's a lot of possibilities with if Viridian develops this well. There's a great opportunity to do, in my opinion, a nationally a potentially nationally recognized water restoration, wetland restoration, and stream restoration on the property, and certainly encourage the sustainability committee to do what you can as you see it, as you see plans come forth, whatever is in your purview. But I just wanted to mention that we do have several members of the committee, or the Conservancy board and watershed committee, that have been mobilizing to serve on work groups to track this development. And Ken Wiesner and Herb Garn are co-chairs for the watershed committee. They're kind of our primary points of contact. Deb Whites has obviously been very heavily involved in that work, but just want to make sure that others know about the interest that the Friends have, and certainly we'd like to be seen as a resource as development continues to progress. And we've been having regular communications with Eric Sorensen on stormwater related issues. Happy to see the work that Eric's been leading to hire MSA to work on the Graber Greenway, which includes this property. So just wanted to give those tidbits along to you, and if you have interest, feel free to reach out to me later on, or to Ken Wiesner or Herb Garn, and we'd be interested in making sure that if there are common interests that the Sustainability Committee has, that we can try to help bring those items up as appropriate. Like I know that there is aquatic organism passage interest from some of the Sustainability Committee members, and likely a number of other things that the Watershed Committee and Friends would like to keep in the loop, and make sure that the designers, as they're putting together plans, keep those things in mind, and make this as good a development as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. That's a great comment. I'm probably not even supposed to say that, but yes. Okay, do we have other public comments? Okay, not seeing any. Let's move on to the Ziegler Farm development. So you all know my stance now. This next agenda item is really for you, to talk about anything you want to talk about. Whether you agree with that stance. I personally, just to summarize quickly, I would like to see the heat pumps be the default. And if they're not mandatory, there's no heat pump police coming, but it seems like a great opportunity at this point. Dick?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I read over your thoughts for changing the amendments, and I was thinking about this. And philosophically, we can't force the developer to mandate that you have to have a heat pump, but we'll give you an option to not if you don't want it. But I think what it comes down to is we really have to convince the public that this is what's needed for society in Middleton. And then they would say to the developer, I'm not just talking Ziegler here, I'm talking any project, this is what we want, because our goals for Middleton are important to us living in the community. They're important for the state and the country and the society. I think our bigger challenge is convincing the public that it's worth spending an extra number of $1,000s to put a heat pump in, because you will save money in the long run, and you'll be doing all this great value to everybody. And so I was a little initially taken back. I thought, well, Ziegler can dig their heels in. I mean, I like the fact they already said they're going to do 100% stormwater retention. And we've said here in the listing of all the things we're recommending that they go beyond it. Because you can go beyond it. 100% means that you keep the amount of stormwater that would have naturally occurred had the development not happened. But you can actually get more than that by putting in certain kinds of rain gardens and infiltration basins. So you can go beyond what is required. And I don't want to make Ziegler, and I didn't have the email problems that you had, so none of this was something that I was thinking about until just before this meeting, when I saw your amendments. So I just feel like, well, what's the best way forward here to make Ziegler want to work with us? Because we are a recommendation body. We made some really strong recommendations to the city, the planning commission, and whoever votes for this, whatever. And I want us to be an effective committee. And it boils down to, we got to convince the public that this is what we need as a society, and how to get there so that developers are being told, this is what we want. We're going to buy a home here only if we can do this, rather than a developer be the police force to say, well, this is what you need to put in. So you see where I'm coming from?
I do. Yep, that's a fair point. Yeah, Deb.
I agree with Dick. I really don't know as much about heat pumps as I should to tell a developer that it's got to be the default. So I'm uncomfortable with using that kind of language. Certainly, it's an alternative, or it's a choice. I guess it's a choice that homeowners can have, and they should be educated about it. But I don't think it needs to be the default or mandatory, or telling them how to build this house. The other thing, there was a list of things in the packet, and it said the zone heating / cooling should be there. I'm thinking, isn't that due to a minimum square footage that you have zone heating? If you have, for an example, in Bell Farms, they have homes that are 1,200 square feet. Would it make sense to have zone heating and cooling in a house that's small?
Yeah, you know
Should
what? I think
there, in
yeah.
other words, should there be a minimum?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. Should there be a minimum to that opinion? And then bird-friendly windows, there's nothing asked, talking about, maybe that would be a good suggestion to have the design think about birds, being that we have a new ordinance. And then it says there should be LED street lights, but it doesn't say as dark sky lighting, and I think those words might be appropriate
Yeah. Okay.
as well.
Yep, I'm writing those down. Yeah, the zone heating, we talked about last time. I'm not an expert on it. I know that it can be beneficial even for smaller houses, Deb. Let's say, instead of having the whole house be heated at the same temperature, maybe you just need instead of having one control for the AC, for example, you just have the bedrooms separate so that the AC can be in the bedrooms at night, and the rest of the house is that kind of thing. So I don't think there's necessarily a square footage, but yes, bigger houses obviously would benefit from it more, for sure. So good point. And a good point about the bird friendly and the dark sky. Those we missed. Yeah. And that was a good point that came out of last time. Kelly mentioned that LED streetlights, we brought that, and we brought up the actually, and Dick, I still want to send your picture of the salamander with the crossing, but yeah, it's the city's responsibility, so that shouldn't have even been on that list either. It wasn't a perfect list. Kermit.
Yes, thanks, Christy. I totally agree that as Dick is right, as we're an advisory committee, we don't have mandate power, and Deb affirming that is on target. However, as an advisory committee, we can persist in reiterating our advice and encouraging that the advice be followed if it seems like it's not being followed. We don't have, approval power over the plans, but the city council, I believe, does, yes? And if so, we are giving advice to the city council as to what we think would be prudent and appropriate to include in this development, whether it be a question of how it might be marketed or presented. And I think we are not so much needing to persuade the public as realize that we are representing the public and trying to help address issues that the public, were they informed and aware, would want to speak on. And so we are speaking on the public's behalf, saying in particular, to address the climate change goals of our community, we need to shift from fossil fuel reliance to use technologies like the heat pump. And so we want a developer to encourage that as we can call it a default option. We can say, okay, we'll put 2 or 3 defaults. Maybe you can include natural gas, but something that gets this new option in front of people. So I support pressing forward with asking for that as the advice that we are giving from our perspective as the Sustainability Committee.
An advisory committee, point well taken. Yep, from all of you. Dean.
Yes, thank you. I think Kermit hit on my point just as he finished there, which is really that default doesn't mean mandatory. It means if the person actually said, hey, I don't care what kind of heater you put in this thing, then they would put in a heat pump. That's the default. Otherwise, you present the default perhaps first, but you also present the second. Here are your options. And if they say, I don't care, you default to the heat pump with the backup. That's the way I understand the word. But so we're not mandating at all. We're just trying to make sure that the heat pump option is presented. And the other thing that this discussion made me think of is we may need to figure out what sort of education the Viridian group might need in presenting advantages of the heat pump, other than just saying this costs this much, this costs this much. What does it cost over time as you don't spend any money on gas? It's anyway.
They would
Thank you.
still, just to clarify, they would still spend money on gas because it would be the dual fuel.
Yeah, but it's I have one of these up in Minocqua. It was
Yeah.
-6. We didn't spend anything on gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. These are all great comments. Thank you all. Fred.
Hey, I really agree with a lot of the points. I just want to say again, I might not know enough about each of the different aspects about the heat pumps. I'm not an expert, but I do think, just to reiterate, it's the sustainability. I don't think it's something we should just back down just because we're only supposed to be advisory. I'd almost go as far to say is we should encourage the default to be sustainability just in general, because I feel like that's what our job is, to advise the council and making that happen in our community. So yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents.
Great 2 cents, Brad. Thank you. Thanks for speaking up. Lynn.
When you take a look at Viridian's website, they don't mention heat pumps on their marketing materials. And it would be interesting to have them talk to us again about why that is. I think this is my opinion, I think they understand how the technology works. And I'm curious if there's some other reason they're not doing it. Have they bought 10 years worth of furnaces from a contractor? And I don't know.
No, it's true. They might have a bulk contracting of the fossil fuel.
Could be.
Yep. They're also just their short-term goal is the lower the price of the house,
Yeah.
the better it is for them. Initial price. Yep. Dick.
Okay, well, I've heard a lot of people say we should encourage this thing. So rather than mandate, encourage. I think that's what our philosophy is. We want to allow people, the Viridian, to at least encourage, promote. The second point, I think it's a charge to us and others. We need to come up with real data and experiences, not just testimonials or thinking that this is great. We need to come up with hard information that this is what heat pumps do so that we have this as a backstop to be able to promote that why we want to use them, not because we think they're good. Christy, I know you've put them in. I know that uh, our former chair, Lisa, yeah, she's got them in. There must be a lot of people who have used them, and I think we should be asking MG&E and others. Let's get documented information about what are the savings in both energy and cost so that we can support these recommendations rather than just blowing hot air. And
Yep.
and I feel like that's what we're doing. We feel viscerally that this will help and we want to do the right thing. But if we don't have the information, and Kathy Coons from the county, we should be asking them. Let's find the documentation and why we feel that a new development goes in. They should be promoting and almost as a default saying that this is what will go in as a heat source unless the homeowner or the buyer says, no, I don't want it. And I feel we are, without doing that, then we are not being fair on this, and that's what I feel our advisory role should be.
Yeah, as effective, you're right. You're totally right. We're not being as effective as we could be. I really appreciate that point very much. I happened to see an article yesterday in the New York Times. But the data they presented about heat pumps, it was about heat pumps. It was more like the big picture data. It was data. It was hard data, Dick, but it wasn't the type that even I could necessarily process. So I didn't even bring that here. And actually didn't look for anything else in advance of this meeting, but it was like greenhouse, reduces greenhouse gases and this, but it just wasn't as, I don't know, not productive isn't the right word. I don't know, relatable to me, maybe. And also MG&E is the wrong stakeholder to ask about it. I think Kathy Coons is perfect. But MG&E, they don't necessarily want the heat pumps and because they use less energy. So MG&E makes the more energy used, the more money they make is the unfortunate reality of the
Why,
investor.
well, Christy, you're saying they use less energy, but let's document it. Let's have
No, right,
information.
yeah, yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we need to get past her hyperbole and have facts so that we can come up with the information to give to the Common Council, to give to developers to say, if you put heat pumps in, this will save X% of reduction of electricity usage and less greenhouse gas emissions. And this is what we need.
Yeah, I bet the heat pump manufacturers have it, but I
yeah,
want even an independent source beyond that as well. So point very well taken, Dick. Yep, wise point. Okay, so Kathy Coons, I might take your suggestion, actually email her tomorrow morning.
yeah. That was part of her presentation
Mhm.
at the library event that she spoke at last year. It's very well done.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I mean, I just want to keep butting in, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Can we come up with a fact sheet
Yeah,
that we've gleaned from different sources, whether it's industry, whether it's Kathy Kuntz and what they're done, so that we have something that we can provide to the council, to the developers and whatever. This is why we want to do something. And is this an effort? Maybe get Kelly to respond to this. Well, what it would take to do a fact sheet that documents the advantages of heat pumps versus not.
Yeah, those do exist. The county has some already, and Sustain Dane has them also.
Okay. Well, that's a great point. And if we want to make our own, like you said, Dick, which compiles the information, we just, make sure we cite the sources and things. That's great too. Okay, first step is getting those resources from them and taking a look at them. And we can share those. I can share those with the committee. And maybe Kelly, if you already have them, I don't need to be emailing on top of messages you already have from them. You and I can discuss that separately. We can touch base separately on that. Thank you. Very good, really, really helpful input from everyone. Thank you. Very well taken and received on my part. Oh, sorry, we have an MG&E guy here. Guy, hi, sorry. But that's my stance. Okay, well, we're gonna look at yours too, Guy, actually, since you provided that. Thank you. An Energy Star Kermit. Okay, Kelly, can we get this somehow? I can't, sometimes I can't, I feel like I can't see the chat things. Can we just get those like, or the links or something? Or can someone just grab those links and like put them in an email to all of us or something like that? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, okay. I feel like you guys gave me just really excellent input. I took notes. I'm going to adjust even what I was thinking for my presentation tomorrow night to reflect our discussion, which I appreciate. So unless anyone has anything else on this right now, my follow-up is to get the different sources of heat pumps, and then I really think Dick is spot on about the fact sheets. So whether it's multiple or we combine them and make our own, I think that's great. Okay. So I think unless anyone has any further agenda items on this, or I mean, topics of discussion on this, we can move forward. Lynn.
I had a comment about the picture that was previously up on
Oh.
screen. This was an update on the Ziegler farm since we last met.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So if everybody looks at the red arrow in the lower left, it's pointing at a white rectangle. That's the northern edge of Ziegler Farms. And in the first proposal to the city, those house lots were pushed all the way to the property lines with Misty Valley. And also in the plans, there was a research paper on the number of endangered wildlife. And at a couple of city meetings, I think it was the zoning meeting, some Misty Valley residents were able to get to the microphone and talk about creating a wildlife corridor along the northern edge. So Matt Brink from Viridian did email the image that you see on the top, and where it's circled in blue is a figure that says 27 feet, which is an increase of 20 feet. And so that strip's going to run all the way from Graber Pond to High Road, which I think is needed. A couple nights ago, I saw about 5 deer crossing High right at that farmhouse. And so everybody in Misty Valley is very happy that that buffer will be there. As you all know, they won an award this year for their Keneal Corner Conservancy. So they were very happy at this news. So I just wanted to share an update on that.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, that's great. I think no further comments. We can move forward. Okay, let's go to the MHS Green Team. Any
Cool.
updates?
Yeah, we have quite a few updates. So we're meeting this Wednesday with members from the lunchroom. We're going to try to talk about in schools beef consumption. We're going to try to come up with a plan to limit that for sustainability reasons. We're also going to talk about the use of single-use plastics in the lunchroom across the schools. So hopefully that'll go well. That's on Wednesday, and then we're in contact with some other schools about lighting through some of the elementary schools, some of the older schools, and seeing if some of those lights are unnecessary. And we've also talking Um, sorry. Yeah, we're also pushing through the school sustainability committee for educational standards and more renewable energy and things of that nature. We also tomorrow have several elementary school visits, I believe, to Elm Lawn to talk about sustainability and more coming up in January as well. That's about it.
Those are great updates. In case you you were on the committee when Alder Lisa Haniro was on the committee, she's a big one in just so you know, Brad, if you ever want to be introduced to her, I'm happy to introduce you directly. Lisa is still an Alder, and or not a committee member, but an Alder, and she is big into reducing meat consumption. So if you want any help on that one, she would be a good advocate for you too, if you need that.
Oh, definitely. Actually, that would be awesome.
I
That
will
would
do
be
that
great.
then. I will do a
That would
direct
be great.
introduction.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Okay, that's wonderful. Let's move on to update from School Sustainability Committee. And we have Kelly on that, right? Okay,
Yeah, Kevin and I, Kevin's on the meeting here today too. We both attended the last meeting in early December for the School Sustainability Committee, and it's made up of other community members and students from the Green Team. And McKinstry has been there, and McKinstry is the consulting firm based in Seattle who is working with the schools on working on a roadmap to help the school meet the resolution energy goals that were laid out by students from that resolution that was passed a few years ago. And they have quite a plan developed. There's a lot. One thing I like about it is that they've staged the equipment replacement and renewable energy installations at the different schools. They've pieced it out year by year so that they have a plan for how to tackle this bit by bit. Some of it's dependent upon when things are phasing out and when things need replaced, and other things are just going for it with solar and geothermal at some buildings. So it was interesting to see that roadmap. I can share the slides with the committee. They're public documents. So you can see some of the graphics that show how they've pieced out the work over the next 10 years. And I also met with McKinstry separate from the school sustainability committee to talk about their services. And it was really an hour and a half of just getting to know one another and helping them understand where the city's at itself on our sustainability goals and plans. And so that they can begin thinking about, potential services to offer Middleton or that we could talk about in the future. I think that we do have a lot of plans, energy plan, our resolution, and a lot of our plans, when you combine them along with the sustainable purchasing policy, that do similar things to what McKinstry's done for the school. So my question was, therefore, do we really need to launch into, a $150,000 consultant contract to basically rehash the plans we have? Or, like what more niche services could they provide to help move us forward on our goals and our staging? So it was an interesting conversation, and I'll keep reporting on that through the staff reports if I have other meetings.
thank you. Great update. Okay,
I,
Brad?
I have a
Oh.
question about the school thing. Can I interject here?
Yep, let's go with Brad first and then you second. How about that?
Sorry, I apologize. I just had a question. At the meeting, is the sustainability committee like pushing for, I guess, like climate education standards within the curriculum? Or I was just
Yeah,
curious.
they did talk about that. They talked about didn't talk about it as much because they were doing a pretty deep dive into the energy systems, but they did talk about how that's written into the resolution and that's what the students want to see. And so they did talk about working with teachers and the district on how to include sustainability in the I don't know, the word pedagogy is kind of big to use, but how to integrate sustainability into learning opportunities for students in at all levels of the school. I didn't see that part of the plan spelled out in detail. So that's something to keep talking about. And maybe in their roadmap, it's more laid out. And maybe Kevin knows more about that too. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I would just add that they they haven't really addressed it much, but there is one of the teachers from the high school on the committee. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but I could get it and put it in the comments if you'd like.
Sure, if you have it, yeah. Okay. Brad, do you want to lower your hand or are you good? We'll go to Dick next. Dick, I didn't forget about you.
Okay. Yeah, I both in Brad's report and the school sustainability committee, I feel like we had some good discussion earlier this year about the school needing to do something with all its food waste and composting. And then there was the state initiative. And even a year or so ago, the county had some grants. And I think I've personally have moved away from the school needing to do their own composter. But because it feels like, well, that puts a real onus on the school to run it with dedicated staff. But the challenge is, okay, if we're going to compost food, we got to get the school on board to be able to get the right kind of compost being collected and get out the stuff that would make it unacceptable. So there's a lot of people, but it's a bottom up thing, I think. And I feel like it's a tangible goal, something that we should get our hands around. And of course, the school committee and the school people and the students, they're the ones that have to take this ball and carry it over the goal line. But I feel like this is something we've talked about, and I'd like to see some specific momentum moving towards it rather than just generalities about what's we could do in the schools.
Brad, do you have your hand up again? Go for it.
Yeah, I do apologize. That is one thing I forgot. That plan is underway. So composting is underway. I don't, forgive me, I'm not exactly in charge of it. I don't know if we're composting right now, but the wheels are definitely in motion. And we have we like have a schedule, pickup and a drop off schedule. We have like I guess like a plan, I guess. Just so you know, that's something I forgot in my update. I apologize, but
Is this for the high school, Brad, or is this for the like
it's a good
broader to
question.
the school district
I
and like
believe I believe this
Promry
plan
and
specifically is only for the high school. Honestly, I don't know about the middle schools or the elementary schools, but I can ask one of the other members on the green team is if that would be helpful. But
well, are you planning on making this working with Purple Cow and this whole broader initiative? Maybe Kelly will bring it up in her staff report about composting in the area. Is this something that you're trying to link into some of those efforts, or are you trying to generate something that you as the high school would do itself?
to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. I do apologize. I would say like I can send you more info. It's like it's not me that's been doing the communication and emailing. Like I've been a part of like doing the actual like building, but I haven't been in contact with like the people we're doing it exactly. That I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize. No problem. Good info.
Yep.
Kermit,
I was just going to ask whether we could invite Brad to either do a little more research on what his colleagues in the team are doing on this composting effort to report back next month, or perhaps if there is somebody who's like heading up that work for the high school, maybe we could make an agenda item and give them a chance to report back to us just to give us some update and encouragement.
definitely. This goes for everyone. If you have agenda items you'd like to see on any meeting, email Kelly, email me, email Laura, and yeah. And Brad, if you have somebody that would be helpful to bring here to talk to the committee, you can certainly propose that too. Where did Brad go? Why don't I see Brad?
Sorry.
No, it's my
I'll look
screen.
into it.
More
And
people got on, so I need to expand. Okay.
just wait, sorry, just a clarifying point. So if I get that information and I contact um the person I'm thinking of, if I just email you, is that
Sure.
like email the chair and email
Or
you, Kelly?
Kelly, or both of us.
That works?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. I will definitely do that. I will definitely do that.
that'd be great. I know Dick's been really interested
Thanks.
for a while, and we all have, so that's great. Okay. Okay. Good suggestion. All right. I don't see any other discussion on that, so let's move on to Sustainable Middleton Awards.
Well, the awards went, the application and info pages went live on December 1st. Has anybody seen any information that that's happened from the city? I haven't. Kelly, is
I
there
don't,
anything that's sent out to tell the public?
I don't think Brent sent anything out. I think I need to sit down with Brent and we can work out, where he posts it. I haven't seen anything come through my email from Civic Send.
Because I think it needs to be advertised.
Yeah.
That's where we're at this point.
Yes, you're right.
I don't know if there's any other news besides
Yeah.
that.
Okay, Kermit.
Is it sufficient to essentially delegate to Kelly to have a conversation with Brent to delegate because it's like, seems like we should have a press release to the Middleton Times Tribune. We should have social media posts. We should have an update on the sustainability website. And I don't know if any of that's happened, but those seem to be like low hanging fruit that would be appropriate as part of any basic, PR effort.
Yep. And Kelly's gonna follow up. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to Sustainable You.
Well, all of the speakers are set for 2025. However, the library has new rules and we're considered an outside group. And so we've been trying to set up a meeting, which hasn't happened yet, to get all of the details. But my understanding is that they are providing the room and the training to use the AV equipment, and then we need to use the AV equipment with the speaker and get everything set up. We're supposed to set up the room ourselves, and I would assume take it down so that it's ready for the next user. I'm hoping that the library will still register people on their website, but even that is tentative. So I know, Kelly, do you have any news on all of this?
I spoke with Jocelyn, the library director, for a while last week, and we discussed that we will need to set up the room ourselves, and we can do it. I can do a training. Maybe one other committee member, like Deb or something, could also do it just in case as a backup for the AV equipment, how to run it. And then they will advertise our event on their website and on their calendar. And they'll also post any flyers that we make in the library. They have a place for city-specific things. So I think what we'll need to do is get together with Brent and have him do a flyer design and make that a regular thing that can be updated with each new speaker. And then also go through a training with Brent and also whoever it would be to help with this, how we can use CivicSend to register applicants. There is a registration module on our website where we can take in registrations. I've never used it before. I don't know if it's difficult, but it links directly to our notify me lists, which would be nice because then if we get, 30 registrants, then those people would automatically or have a choice to be put on the notify me lists for all future sustainability meetings and news that goes out. So it would be a good way to capture those folks officially in our website. So I think we should do it that way. Kylie from Parks and Rec also wants to sit down and have a meeting between the city, Parks and Rec Department, the sustainability folks, Friends of Pheasant Branch, and the library, just to get us all on the same page for what we're responsible for and how to work together. Because I think we all mostly know, but I think it would just help to have a conversation where we can all ask questions in one room together, or one Zoom together. So, um, I don't know if we'll be able to get it scheduled this week. We sort of batted that around last week about times, and we haven't settled on a time that anyone can meet all of us together. So, I'll work on that, but I think it'll most likely be after the holidays.
Well, I know that the Friends, Kylie has come up with 3 posters for their first 3 meetings, and they are doing the odd months. They're going to do registrations through Park and Recs. Friends are for their Conservancy Day talks. So my fear, I guess, is that we're going to lose participation from the citizens who are normally on the calendar at the library and register right there. And, and that's the way it's been forever. And now they have to go somewhere else, some other website or some other means of registering for these events. And I'm afraid we're going to lose some participation. So just when we've kind of built it up over this year.
Yeah, maybe it's worth it to ask Jocelyn if they'd be willing to do the registration and maintain some of the same responsibilities for at least the next few months while we shift over. Um, the Parks and Rec department has I wouldn't say a large staff because they're understaffed too, but they have several staff members who manage all the social media and graphics, and they have kind of their own communications team that does this stuff. So we're sort of reliant on between Brent and I, what we put out. And they have their own registration system with staff to support that. So we are sort of at a disadvantage, the sustainability events specifically, because we have no admin staff.
And my question is, can I directly talk to Brent, or do I have to go through you?
I don't mind if you directly talk to Brent at all. I think any emails from the library, they'll probably send them to me and then I'll share them with you, but it's not because I have a problem with anyone speaking to anyone in the city. I can be a point of contact so that I would prefer to be CC'd on everything so I know what's happening so I can not get lost in the back and forth, but that's fine.
Kermit.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wanting to unpack a little bit. Is the situation with the library coming about because they're reevaluating policy and trying to avoid being responsible for, providing staff time? Because I mean, initially I thought we were kind of doing this more collaborative thing, like a joint presentation of the sustainability committee and the library, and that they were providing some in-kind services, as it were, to kind of help this happen. And now, what exactly has changed, I guess, is my question. And can we renegotiate our way back to that more friendly, laid back co-sponsorship that I thought we had?
I don't think we can go back to the way it was. I think it's a staffing issue that they've got a dedicated staff person. At least this year they had one that took care of everything for us and the Conservancy Days for the Friends, for that matter. And by making the user do more of what they were doing, they can then have their staff doing other things for the library.
So so it's not, we're not even framing it as co-sponsored by the library and sustainability committee. It's just like we're a group off the street and we're just using the space.
Yeah. Basically.
If that's the way they want to be, okay.
You're gonna contact Brent and copy Kelly. Is that right, Deb?
Yes.
Okay. I can't imagine I can do anything more, but if I can, let me know on that one. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the budget item. There is some money. I know Laura emailed me. Everyone is welcome to email me as we just, or Kelly too, about expenditures for this year. Laura emailed me. She has some magnets that she wants to buy. We have the funds. We're really close. So unless anyone has another idea, or Kelly, if you do, we might as well use that money for educational magnets for the recycling center and things like that. So what do you, Kelly, anything on that one?
Yeah, I can do the magnets. I don't think those will actually be much money. There is another bill that's come through for the Bach Community Garden, and I think there was one other admin bill that will expend another about approximately $200.
Okay.
That came through today or Friday. And
Okay.
then there's also a potential I got an email from the USGBC, that's the United States Green Building Council, and it was a personal email from the folks that I worked with, and they encouraged us to reapply for, not reapply, re-up our membership with the USGBC because we get benefits for that and technical expertise advice, and it would be $750, and they offer a discount to lead cities.
Okay.
And so that might be something I'd be interested in. I think you
Yeah.
get a deep discount on their conferences and
Yeah. So maybe we do that as long as we don't go over with your other bills you have to pay, and then we can do the magnets in the new year.
I think the magnets would just be, under $200 to get a
Oh,
bunch.
okay.
They're not very expensive.
Okay. I feel like you don't need to come back to me on any of those things. We've discussed it here. However you can maximize the budget for this year, go for it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And then next on the staff report, what comments, questions, feedback do we have for Kelly on the staff report? Yeah, Deb, sorry, I didn't see your hand right away.
That's because I just put it up.
Well, good. I wasn't like slacking.
No. Number 4 under the staff report.
Yep.
Charge on top of electricity. Isn't there already a charge on electricity? I just didn't understand the wording, I guess. How does that compare to a tax on gasoline? Is this extra?
This is extra, and it's new legislation that was passed, and they're trying, I think, basically to recoup some of the taxes that normally would come from people driving ICE vehicles. So they're trying to capture extra money from people who are using electric vehicles for charging. So there's a tax, and a lot of the communities don't know how to capture that data and how to measure it when it's their own fleet. Not that it would be so hard, but it's just something we don't know yet. And it's but we haven't really figured out how to interpret the legislation fully. So we were all talking about this at the Sustained Dane Summit, and we had so many questions. And Kathy said it sounds like we really need to get together and talk this out. Everyone knows a few answers and has more questions. So they're putting together an event in January to go through these questions. But these questions, like, I really think it's important to understand that it sounds like it would be easy to put in chargers and get your fleet transitioned and then just go for it, but there are so many little details that make it difficult to do that. Like there's so many hoops to jump through. There's questions you don't know how it's best practice, how it's done. I wrote out all these questions so you could see some of the complexity. Um, and everyone's a bit stuck, I think, right now. So it'll be a really great event. We need to have these types of events for all of these technologies coming down the pipe because there's so many questions and they constantly change and morph throughout the year.
It just seems like a regressive tax. I mean, we should be encouraging EVs, not discouraging, and taxing them higher, because they're not using gasoline, which we don't want people to be using gasoline. We're trying to get away from fossil fuels. It's like when they put an extra tax on hybrids and EVs, to get for your license plate. I really hated that because I'm not using the road, tearing it up like big trucks are. So why don't they put an extra, on them and encourage people to have lighter weight cars and EVs and hybrids? But they don't. They put extra taxes on the more ecological, environmental thing. So
yes, I would urge you to write your state legislators about this. And then I also would say that the Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition is a really important group for things like this to comment directly in the dockets and to the PSC and all the different entities that play into some of these rules. It's a vehicle for making our voices known collectively as Wisconsin municipalities.
Okay. Comment?
In that regard, I'll just put in a plug for 350 Wisconsin's state policy group, where they also try to engage on policy issues at the state level like this that are, as in terms of the environment and climate change, as Deb points out, very regressive. And again, it's one way to kind of make your voice heard and participate with others who are similarly concerned. So for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, you can put your hand down, Kermit, if you're done.
Yep, sorry. Thanks.
Oh, and then I just remembered at the beginning, one of the other things Laura said was to state in the minutes what time, or other committees, she recommended other committees state the starting and ending times. So we could do that too.
We do that.
Do that, okay. All right, all right. Well, if we don't have any other comments, we could be really at a nice ending time tonight. Dick, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so you just scrolled past the composting thing. I guess I'm trying to get my head around where this effort here is on number 5 and how that links into an effort that we were talking about. Was it you, Kelly, that sent around that you in the chat, you had this thing about that one group we had talked to us a few months ago. Seems like maybe more than that, maybe half a year ago, about starting composting. And so, I mean, where are we going? I mean, can reading this, I'm not quite clear on what our goal is, what our targets are, and how get the school going and get real composting going in the community here. So maybe we take this opportunity just to discuss that a little.
This grant that's listed in under number 5 does not do all things, and we can't make it do all things for composting, but it's a grant from the county through the USDA, and it funds the construction and servicing of kiosks in host communities, Middleton being one of them. So we'll get one kiosk with this grant, and it will have a couple of food composting bins, and it will be part of a program where you opt in. So it won't be an open bin that anyone can use and put anything in. It will be for people who want to be a part of the program, and then they'll have access to these bins. We're looking for a location to put them, which also brings up a lot of questions because they need to be bolted into concrete and, they need to be able to withstand wind and, vandalism and trucks backing into them, that kind of stuff. So we're working on that. The Madison Children's Museum is designing the kiosks. The county is running the program, and Purple Cow is the composting entity that will actually be picking up the compost on a weekly or biweekly basis. It's really meant to be an educational program, and one way to bridge the gap between what we don't have now and the eventual digester that will be housed at the sustainability campus at the new landfill in the county. Once that's in place, which is probably a few years off, then we'll be able to do a more comprehensive food composting effort for all the communities. It would probably be fee-based, but that'd be something where it could be like a curbside composting program. However, separate from this particular grant, companies like Greenbox and others, they have their own program, and I won't, you've seen the presentation they gave, but they actually have an industrial composter that can take more different types of waste. It can have food waste, but it can be contaminated somewhat with meat, bones, compostable packaging. And so if I were the school district, I'd maybe recommend going with Greenbox for some of that composting because I think with with Purple Cow or trying to get the school to use this kiosk or try to combine all these things into this grant, I just don't know how that would work out because this particular composting program will have a limited um, array of things that it will accept. It won't probably accept meat, or if it maybe it will, but not no. It can't be contaminated because it's going to be composted at the Purple Cow site. So that's different than an industrial composter that can handle some contamination. So I don't think this is the answer for everything, and it's not a community-wide composting program. But I think it's one way to start educating the public, like, oh, hey, like we can compost our food, and what's that mean? And it'll have great signage with educational facts and signage on the bins. So I'm hoping it will get the community thinking about it and then asking questions about it, wanting more of this, and it'll lead to more things in the future.
Can I just follow up, please?
Yep.
Yeah.
You say we, are you saying that, okay, myself, my wife, at this address, if I agree to sign up and follow the rules and not put any meat, whatever the material is, I store it, I can take it there anytime I want in a 5 gallon bucket or a half gallon or whatever container size I want. And I will be given some kind of code that I will allow me to open the lid up and dump my stuff in. Is that exactly what you see as this program?
Yeah.
Is it going to be set up where a particular restaurant could use it, or is it designed for homeowners? I mean, what is the scale of it? I hate to see this thing done in a way that it's not successful because then it sets us all back. I feel like we really need to move this forward in ways that make sense. And a lot of the things you mentioned here make me worry. Well, you got to get a key to get in, and you're going to do certain things. You can't contaminate it with this or that. Who's going to really use it and provide the quantity of the right stuff that makes this a viable option?
Yeah, I think always when doing these kinds of new programs, there's a lot of questions. There's things that can go wrong. there's a lot of communities that do this. They have Minnesota and California, a lot of different states have programs like this where people have codes and they can get into the food waste bin, dump their food, lock it back up, and that's how it runs. And I don't know if it would work to have a restaurant, feeding tons of material into the site. Again, I feel like that might be better served by a green box who would come to the restaurant and pick it up at the restaurant as a service. So I think it's just thinking about who would use this, who are we targeting, and it can't be something that works for everyone because it just won't be the way it's set up. It's at a particular site, so people will have to get to that site. We were talking about Lakeview Park because it's located centrally. It's in a census tract where there's more people walking, it's denser development or apartments down there. So that might be a site for it. There's not a great place downtown. There might be. So there are things to still work out. We are meeting with Kylie from Parks and Rec and Kevin from Parks and Rec and the county to go to some of these sites and talk through some of these issues. I think, like with all grants, you get a grant, you have a somewhat of an idea how to do it, and then the rubber meets the road when you get into these details like, well, will this design blow away? We need to have an engineer review the site plan for this and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of details always with these projects to get done. I don't have all the answers today, but it's still in the design phase. And the city would like to have an MOU written so that the city's very clear on its responsibilities. The county, we have it in writing what the county's responsible for, so that we know who's going to be responsible if something breaks, if it needs service 3 times a week as opposed to the 1 time a week. How's that handled? Um, we want to have that stuff in writing, and it will have to go through council.
Dick? You good on that answer, Dick?
Yeah, well, I'm interested in hearing Kermit's response. I'm just going to say this, that, I mean, for me to collect a certain amount of compost and take it somewhere and dump it in, I mean, why are we not promoting individual composting containers that we would keep at our home? Because you're trying to get individual homeowners to do something. My neighbor across the street has one of these, and I used to have a compost pit or area when I was out in the country. I don't have one now because at one time I thought they were not allowed in our subdivision or area. But so I have a lot of questions about it, and I don't want to take up any more time. I'm interested in hearing other people's thoughts.
Okay, well, in the meantime, Dick, I do it myself in the backyard. I have 2 bins. You can bring your stuff to my house in the meantime. Okay,
Yeah, I
Kurt.
mean, I'd rather do it myself. If I've got a little bit, it's fresh. I want to take it there and get rid of it, not store it for 5 days until I get enough that I feel like I want to drive downtown to wherever this thing is located, or Lakeview Park. It just feels like that is not something that's going to get individual homeowners to do it in a way that's going to make it viable.
Yeah, it'd get really motivated people, but maybe not everybody. Okay, Kermit.
Yeah, actually, I was wanting to focus on item 1 on the staff report, Kelly. Unless there's other discussion that people wanted to chime in on regarding the composting, but I think my one thought there would be that maybe we need to get a compost subcommittee to look at what would be a comprehensive, multi-layered approach where, we don't turn it into one single bureaucracy or one size fits all, but try to mobilize people to, if you're a homeowner and you have yard space and you get one of those spinning bins that you can put your compost into. If you're an apartment owner, good thing that Kelly is helping spearhead this, project. Maybe that's the best solution. Anyways, I think there's a lot more discussion that could be done if we really think that composting is a high priority and we can see things happen there. Again, if there's nothing further though, I'm concerned about the battery storage project and the fact that it looks like there's all the time and effort that Kelly's put into this and all the prep work that's been going on could be for naught and fall by the wayside if they don't approve this additional expenditure to, what is it? I guess they have to relocate things to meet certain safety code or fire code requirements. What can we do to help make sure this goes through? I mean, does it still make sense for it to go through? What's your uh, input to us as a committee that wants to encourage these kinds of things to happen? How can we make it happen? Help it make it happen?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I would definitely tell you if I did. Um, I'm sad about this project because HGA has done a lot of pro bono work on this project too to try to get it over the finish line. And Eagle Point, I think, has been a great partner to try to think of everything we can do. It seems to me like some of the fire suppression codes, and I'm not versed in codes to be able to discuss it with intelligently, but things do seem to be changing with protection from battery fires, whether that's the commercial batteries or whether it's EV lithium ion batteries housed in interior spaces. Some of that seems new to me. Maybe it's not, but I think the architect on a project needs to be the one that's the person who should call that out and say, I know the codes, this won't work, this will work. Um, so so I don't know what council will do with this. I have mixed feelings about this. I don't have a incredibly strong recommendation to council. I'm glad that they're making the decision because as much as I want it to move forward, because we've put so much work into it, and you could argue that case very strongly, I also think that if it's not going to work or if it's not going to provide the huge benefit that we thought it would or that we want it to, then perhaps that money could be spent on other sustainability projects because the council has now allocated an additional, I think it's 220 or 200, I have the number written down on a paper somewhere, how much money, extra money they've allocated to this project in addition to the grant to make this work. So it just seems like the budget keeps going up because of the changes we keep having to make. And I know that if we do, even if council awards the additional 41,000, then it will have to go through a NEPA review by the Department of Energy, in which time I'm not entirely sure that the price of the battery wouldn't go up during the 6 months. You know, you can never know until you order the equipment what it will cost, and you can't really order the equipment until you've gotten approval from the NEPA review. Everything is just a chicken and egg, and this has to happen before you can even begin to think about this. And everything is like a 3 to 6 month out decision. So it's been incredibly challenging. I think we've learned a lot. I think HGA has learned a lot. Eagle Point's learning a lot. But in the end, like should the city pay for those hard lessons? That's something council will have to decide. Um, what I had originally wanted to do was to use that grant to create a microgrid that islands the building. And we know we can't do that with our current generator because the price and the wiring and the electrical work you'd have to do to create that situation isn't feasible with the generator we currently have. It's hard to create an islanded microgrid with an existing building right now. It's easier if you do it from scratch with new construction. So, um, I feel like this is a workaround, and I don't know what I think about it. It would work the way we intend it to work in our revised scope, which isn't a full islanded microgrid. It would provide peak shaving. It would use the solar more efficiently. We'd get some savings. Um, and it would provide some backup for the city, for the building in the event of a power outage, but it would have to be manually switched. So that would require training for a staff member when they already have a generator that provides backup in an emergency. So, I'm going to lay all this out, explain the options, and then council will make the decision on January 7th.
Um,
And it sounds like, I was just, to engage that a little further. So you, given all the uncertainty going forward from this point and all the time and trouble that's gone into it to get to this point, sounds like you don't have a clear recommendation or basically, I'm part of what I'm asking is, should we, one or more of us, show up at the council meeting to try and advocate on behalf of this, or are we and you so unsettled or uncertain about it that we really need to just see what happens?
Kelly, I have a quick thought, if you don't mind if I jump in before you answer that,
Sure.
because it kind of relates to what Kermit's question is, which I think is a good one, Kermit. What I heard was that there's a lot of learnings from a variety of people on this. That's great and really useful. There's an economic concept, it's based in all the math and mathematical basis called sunk cost. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the, avoiding what's called an escalation of commitment. And so it would be, from that standpoint, Kelly, a wise, if you decide that this is a project that, or council or whatever is like, okay, we really tried. It is okay to move forward without this project. That would be okay.
Right.
It would not be terrible.
Right.
Where bad outcomes actually come about is when, let's say somebody doesn't want to look silly for doing all of this, and you keep piling on and piling on and piling on
Right.
until it's
Right.
like ridiculous. And so it seems
Right.
from what I'm hearing, we don't want to go there. And if we really escalated this, that might be that direction. So if this falls, you shouldn't, it's nobody's fault. Like you said, you all learned a lot, and you will use this to make, more informed decisions in the future. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. I have no idea where council will go with this, but I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I don't have a problem if the committee is not overly jumping over the moon to try to save this project. I completely understand that. If council says let's cut our losses now, I won't be upset about it. It just besides the fact that we spent a lot of time and effort on it, and I'm really sad about it. There are also things that Captain Lather has told me that the police station needs that in his mind are sustainability related and need to happen very soon. Like they're having problems with their LED lighting system. And I think, maybe money could be reallocated to help with that because that's actually a work issue. If they have flickering lights, you can't work under those conditions. So, I don't want to not pay attention to those types of issues and push something like this, which at this point is getting more abstract. I also don't want to burn bridges with departments in, pushing something that's not making sense anymore when they have other things that they would like to work on that make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Dean,
Mhm.
you're
You're muted.
unmuting.
Thank you. I guess I just have the question of, do we still need the capacity that the battery storage project promised?
What do you mean the capacity?
Well, when this started in 2020, there was identified a need for battery storage, right? That wasn't being met. And it's still not being met. So if we still need it, sort of what is what might plan B be if the police department siting isn't the right one? Do we have another place to go with it, a way to meet the need?
Well, the project was conceived of because we thought the grant would cover the cost to microgrid, to create a microgrid there that would island the building
So
and be
that's my
able.
question is
Yeah.
what is it? What was so great about that microgrid? And how can we achieve how can we achieve the outcome that you wanted?
Well, the good thing about it was that it would provide an extra layer of resilience. This was coming off post-flood, where we didn't have power for periods of time. In the basement of the police station is our command center for the area, and
Mhm.
that's all that, and it's also the 911 call center. So all of that needs to stay online. There is a generator that currently backs that up. So if the power goes out, the generator can manage that. But as we've learned from doing hazard mitigation studies, there's only so much fuel in the Dane County area, and it is pretty incredible when you think of like a 2 week power outage, all the diesel in an area that is feasible to get the diesel from becomes impossible to get after a pretty short amount of time. So, that would be in an extreme situation, but resiliency is often about making sure that there's
Sure.
redundancies and all that. So
Well,
it's not that.
and it already happened once, right? I mean, the capacity for carrying on with a backup energy system did not work during the flood, right? So you're wanting to have a capacity, an alternate source.
I get
And
what
we
you're
haven't
saying.
found an alternate source yet, right?
Yeah, I understand what Dean's saying
Yeah.
here. Dean's not saying, oh, this is just hypothetical, like in a million years. No, this actually just recently happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there'll be more storms that will
Right.
route power more often moving forward. So it is, I think, a smart thing. But at the same time, the generator does back the building up. So you don't need a microgrid in order to use the
But
diesel generator.
the generator that didn't work the last time, did that work when it
It
was needed
worked.
in the past? Okay, so it did work.
It worked, but to have a microgrid, it would seamlessly transfer power to using the solar, and it would still use the generator, but it
Mhm.
would be completely off. You could make it so that it runs off the grid, so you wouldn't need any grid power coming to it, and it could be perpetual for quite a while. And the battery would extend the generator's life by a lot more. Um, so that was the goal. But when it
Uh-huh.
starts getting into, well, it's going to cost $500,000 to do that, it may not be worth it to do now. In the future, we might write a grant that was actually large enough to do that and try it. But we're learning of um, how difficult it was in
Right.
these existing building situations. This is something that a lot of projects are learning, and other grant money has had to go back to the PSC because of similar conditions that people just couldn't
Well,
figure it out.
yeah, yeah. Now I think I get it. And it sounds like there is backup system one. It's not great, but it does exist with the diesel backup. And so this would be new improved backup system, but it's not as though there's no backup system at all. It's just not as good as it could be. So then I guess I don't see it as absolutely has to happen. I now understand what you're explaining. So thank you for
Yeah, it's
helping
complicated.
me understand.
I'm
Thanks.
going to be saying all this to council too, because they
Yeah.
will have the same questions.
Okay.
Dick,
Yeah, I mean, I think of the battery as not something that you put on the shelf and you wait a year or two, and all of a sudden you've got this backup power to keep your thing going. I was seeing the battery system as how can we make more efficient the use of electricity at the day-to-day operations of the police
Yes.
department. And it's
Yep.
not like it's going to be the diesel generator with maybe a 500-gallon tank there of diesel fuel that would keep it going for 2 weeks, like you're describing. If that's what the intent is, then I feels like that there'd be better places to put the battery storage. I think we want the battery storage to supplement solar so that an operation, whether it's the police department, whether it's the city council building or wherever, that it can run off the grid or pretty much efficiently with the battery covering maybe the nighttime period or when it's not as sunny or when there's a tremendous load on the air conditioning or something. So it just feels like if we're talking about worrying about a big flood event that occurs, very infrequently of having a backup battery, that's not going to last very long. Doesn't feel like. I mean, that's a short term, get us over the day and make it efficient use of our energy, renewable energy sources.
So I'm
Go ahead, Dean.
yeah. So Dick, you're saying then that there is another advantage to this that operates other than only in the full flood disaster
Yeah.
setting. So okay, so that makes it more. There's two reasons to do this then. A ongoing efficiency and a better response to emergency.
Yeah,
So,
the battery helps you use the solar
well,
when
that
electricity is really expensive.
so
Yeah, but this thing is not going to help in a big flood event because it doesn't take more than one night probably to run the battery down, and then you got nada. I
Well, the
mean,
battery works with the generator in a microgrid and supplements it smartly with smart controls. You have to have the key to it all is the really smart microgrid controller. You need the controller. Those are very expensive. Um, and the price went way up during
mm,
COVID and because of the component
well,
part.
we've talked about microgrids for our industrial park, really making that a bigger scale thing where it's truly a microgrid just at the police department building, is a whole different animal, it seems like.
okay.
These are good food for thought. Kermit?
Yeah, so just to maybe wrap this up, it sounds like in terms of the specific budget issue that's going to be presented to council, we as a committee, with the advice and input and perspective of Kelly, having been deep in the weeds with it, don't have a strong point for advocacy for or against it at this point. I, I mean, basically, I was raising the issue to see, is there an action item that we as a committee need to take or should take to help push this across the finish line? And the picture that I'm seeing painted as we discuss it and Kelly shares more about what's been going on is we don't know. And as Christy alluded to, the classic sunk cost fallacy, we could be teetering on the verge of crossing into that abyss, and we definitely don't want to do that. So if that's the case, then I'd say, okay, let's kick the can into the council's lap and see what they do with it. And I will let that pay grade deal with the problem because it's beyond mine.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So good discussions. Do we have any other? It's 8:05. Do we have any other comments? Not seeing any. I want to thank everyone again for your comments early on for the Ziegler Farm development. They were very helpful to me. So not seeing any other comments, I think we can adjourn the meeting. So, and I don't think we need a motion for that, right? It's just, we're done. So, okay, thank you, everyone. Really good discussion. We have the best sustainability committee. That's for sure. So thank you so much.